So you want to play a mage in Elden Ring? Lately I've been hearing people say that mage sucks in Elden Ring because the scaling of spells suck, you get one-shotted all the time, and it's basically just spamming glintstone pebble all game long, which is your starter ability by the way. That doesn't sound fun, right? Well, in this video I'm going to show you how powerful and busted being a mage actually is in Elden Ring, and that it's a lot more fun than just spamming pebblestone. And the best thing about this is that you can become very powerful quite early on with the build that I'm going to show you. First of all, when you make a character, you want to pick up the Astrologer class. It's the most fitted class for a pure mage and has the highest intelligence of any class in the game, and it gets two pretty great starting abilities as well. Then for the keepsake, there are two great options really. The first one being the Crimson Amber Medallion, so you have a bit more HP and you have more leeway versus some enemies that otherwise will just one-shot you. The other great option is the Golden Seed, which gives you an extra flask at the start and can be very useful as it means you get more FP to cast sorceries. You'll find that in the beginning of the game you will run out of FP quite easily. Thus, having an extra flask will make things a lot easier in that regard. Just choose whatever you prefer between these two. It doesn't really matter that much as you get plenty of golden seeds in the open world, and you can also just buy a Crimson Amber Medallion from a merchant at some point. For stats on a mage, you really just want to pump as many points into intelligence as possible. Ultimately, you want to get it all the way till 70 at least so you can cast all the sorceries in the game. For your secondary stats, you want to spend it on mind and vigor so you have more FP and more HP, meaning more sorceries you can cast before running out of FP and more survivability. You can also spend some points on dexterity as it reduces cast speeds a little bit, but so far I haven't really found casting speed being too bothersome, so I have not done that myself. Now let's get into the actual build and the playstyle. When your character enters the world, you'll see that you will start the game with Glintstone Pebble and Glintstone Arc. Both are very decent spells that you start with actually. Pebblestone hits one target at a time for decent damage, and Glintstone Arc is your AoE spell and can take out entire groups of enemies when positioned next to each other. By moving around, you can usually just make the mobs path in such a way that they will form a line so you can hit them with your Glintstone Arc. But in the first hours of playing, you will see that playing a mage will get repetitive rather quickly, as you will just spam Pebblestone over and over, and you only have 2 memory slots, meaning you can only use 2 spells at any time, and your other spell, the Glintstone Arc spell, is only really situationally good. However, if you explore a bit, you will find a sorceress that is relatively close to the starting area at the Waypoints Runes Cellar Grace. Interact with her and ultimately she gives you the possibility to teach you a bunch of new spells. There's even one sorcery that requires 23 intelligence, so it must be powerful. Exciting, right? Well, no, because all of these new spells suck and you should just avoid getting them. Since these sorceries are probably the first new options you'll see after using Pebblestone for hours and you have started craving something else by now, you will get extra disappointed when actually trying them out. They barely do any damage and their FP cost is way too high for that damage in the first place. Thankfully, this is only the start and it only gets better from here. Mages in Souls games usually tend to require some time to really pop off. But even here, if you follow this guide, you can become very powerful with only like spending a few points in intelligence as an astrologer. Thankfully, the sorceries that we will use don't really require that much of an investment into your intelligence stat. So this sorceress has garbage spells, right? But if you provide her with scrolls, she will add more spells to her repertoire. And fortunately for us, there is such a scroll nearby. Go a bit to the north of her, exactly to this place on the map, and you'll find a body laying on top of this structure with a royal house scroll that you can pick up. Present the scroll to the sorceress again and she will now know 2 extra spells to teach you. These are the Glintblade Phalanx and the Carrion Slicer. Now we are starting to talk because these are both useful spells. Especially the Carrion Slicer is a really good spell. First of all, it only costs 4 FP and it does insane damage in return for it, so definitely get it. The only problem with this spell is that it's melee range, and you don't really want to be in melee range as a mage, right? But on the other hand, it has a very fast attack that versus many enemies will just prevent them from attacking at all, while you kill them with fast, powerful attacks. And if you're mounted, you can kill mobs relatively safely if you time the attacks correctly. Now regarding the other spell, the Glintblade Phalanx, it's not that great in terms of damage, but it has a really unique benefit that makes it worthwhile in some situations. This sorcery has a delay in applying damage. What this means is that you can kite away or run away while casting the spell, and then when you face the enemy again, it will automatically let the swords rip through them. This prevents you from being locked in the casting animation while also having a guaranteed way of dealing damage to the enemy. It's definitely a useful spell against some enemies. Think of enemies that have a lot of dashes or are like hyper aggressive, and you don't really have the time to stand still and be locked in a casting animation. Now that you got 2 new actually useful spells quite close to the starting area, it's time to go to other areas and really start making your mage powerful. And it's time to pick up something very important, a huge upgrade to your staff that you will actually use for quite a time. This is the Meteorite staff, and you can pick it up pretty much at the start of the game. You can find the Meteorite staff exactly here. It's in the swamp near Celia Crystal Tunnel, and if you're still in the starting area or you don't want to go all the way to this place, you can teleport to this area, by the way. Just go to here on the map and interact with the chest. This is actually a trap, but in our case it is very beneficial as we now get to go here. Just avoid all the mobs though on the way and quickly move towards the spot with the Meteorite staff, because if you're doing this at the very start, the mobs will completely destroy you. Now this staff is good for 2 reasons. First of all, it has S tier scaling, which means that its damage output is insanely high. And the other reason I will get into later in this video. However, there is something that you need to know. You can't upgrade the Meteorite staff, unfortunately. But I found that this does not matter that much, as I compared the Meteorite staff with my other staff that I got from a boss drop. And I upgraded the staff all the way till it was +4, so I spent a lot of those stones on this thing. But the Meteorite staff with S tier scaling still outperforms the +4 upgraded staff. And it has a lot more damage, as you can see in this comparison. So definitely pick up the Meteorite staff as soon as possible. Nearby the Meteorite staff is a very powerful spell that you also want to pick up, and it's going to be a staple spell that we will be using a lot. This spell is going to melt the HP bars of any enemy. It's the rock fling spell and it's really close to the staff. Actually, it's right here. Go down the stairs and open the chest to get it. The spell does insane damage, doesn't cost too much FP, and it also can function as an AoE spell at the same time. So definitely pick it up. Now back to the Meteorite staff. The Meteorite staff, second reason of why it's so good is because it boosts gravity spells, and the rock fling spell is a gravity spell in fact, so these two go perfectly together. Now that you have this spell, make sure that you have talked to Melina at least once by just progressing the story. Then go back to the Church of Ella and talk to Rena. She will give you a spirit bell and the Lone Wolf Ashes summon. These wolves are very useful for us as a mage, and we can summon them and let them distract and tank enemies, while we at the same time can stay at a safe distance and nuke the enemy. Having done that, we want to do the following. Pick up a high burst, long range spell, and pick up something useful that we can use in our secondary slot. For this you want to go to Caria Manor. It's completely at the end of the map. Basically go northwest all the way. It's going to take a long ass time to get here if you haven't explored this part of the map yet, but it's definitely worth it. There are a lot of good stuff in this section of the map. At Caria Manor, try to ignore the enemies and progress till you're at the upper levels. When you see this giant and 3 guards with stone masks, that's when you actually want to start fighting. Keep killing these guards till they drop a lazuli glintstone sword. This is a pretty good sword as it scales with intelligence in fact, and you can just use it immediately without having to spend any points in stats that are useless for us. Things like strength for example, which a lot of swords will have some kind of requirement for. And yeah, there are not a lot of swords like this, so definitely a great option to pick this one up right here. Then move upwards, just ignore the giant and enter the portal. You can also get to this portal by the way by taking the stairs on the left and then taking a little detour. That is a bit safer because the giant won't be in the way. But when you arrive at the portal, enter it, and now we are going to kill Loretta. Summon your wolves and get rock fling out. Spam the rock fling and see the insane damage that it does. It's an amazing spell combined with your new Meteorite staff, and basically your wolves will tank Loretta and you will melt her HP bar with rock fling. Keep dodging her attacks though, that's quite important, and if you do this and kill her, she will drop a really nice spell named Loretta's Great Bow. This spell is a great opener versus bosses and has an insane distance. You can even charge it to make it deal more damage. You will also one-shot a lot of mobs with it and have a very efficient way to kill annoying rangers and other mages in the game. Now go to the Church of Vows right here. Talk to the giant ass turtle, buy both spells. You will need 10k for the Carrion Greatsword though, but thankfully Loretta will give you 10k when you defeat her. This greatsword is like an upgraded Carrion Slicer, but its range is way bigger. You can run away with it while casting it and it will still hit enemies due to its radius. So it's much easier to attack enemies with it than the Carrion Slicer, and it looks badass as well. Its damage output is also crazy good, so definitely get it. Now that we have a bunch of good spells, we still have a problem. We only have 2 memory slots, so we can only use 2 spells at any time. This is pretty annoying. So what are we going to do? Obviously we are going to get some more memory slots. Go back to Carrier Manor and go beyond the place where you killed Loretta. Go to Rennie's tower and accept to serve her. Then after that you can enter Sylvania's tower. There will be a memory slot for you to pick up at the top of the tower. Then go to Oridi's Rise, do the little mini quest that involves killing the 3 turtles here, and enter the tower and pick up another memory slot. Finally go to the converted tower, read the message inside, and then go outside again and climb to the top to pick up another memory slot. You'll also get a memory slot from just killing the first main story boss, and you can buy a memory slot for 3k runes from this NPC at the round table hold, which is like your home base or something like that. And those are 2 additional memory slots that you can get by just playing the game. Now you will have enough memory spells to cast all your new spells and have a good variety of different types of spells in your selection. Finally pick up a Flask of Wondrous Physic. You can do that here. This is like a potion that you can always use after every rest at a grace. It's just like a HP or a FP potion, but it gives you special buffs essentially. Mix the potion using a Opaline Bubble Tear and an Intelligence Not Crystal Tear. You can get a Opaline Bubble Tear by killing the Air Tree Avatar boss, and you can get the Intelligence Not Crystal Tear near Carrier Manor, which is the place where we killed Loretta, right here. Mixing these 2 in your flask will negate any damage while you have a bubble surrounding you, and it will raise your intelligence, so you will deal more damage. The raise in intelligence will give you a nice little blue glow as well. By the way, for your flasks, make sure that you mostly have FP flasks, as you usually don't need that many HP flasks as a mage, and this way you will make sure that you will always have enough FP to cast your sorceries. Now here are some additional tips. As a mage you always want to keep distance. This is easier to do if you are mounted, as you can dash away quite fast with your horse. And just keep in mind that if the area has this icon on the left, it means that you can summon your spirits, so always do that in those cases, as it will make things much easier for you. Also don't forget to tune your spirits at the round table hold, by the way. This will level them up. You can do this by giving the NPC some plants that you'll usually find in some of the dungeons in the game. Now this is not everything there is to the mage build, but following this build and having this set of spells, memory stones, summons, etc, etc, etc is going to make you incredibly powerful, even at the very start of the game, and it's a lot more engaging and fun than just spamming glintstone pebble. And the best thing about it is that you only need to get a few additional intelligence points to be able to cast all these spells as an astrologer. There are however more spells in the game that will unlock when you get to 30, 40, 50, 60 or even 70 intelligence, and that's something for the late game, and some of those spells will be crazy, I can already tell you that. Elden Ring has however only been out a few days, so I will cover up the best possible build for late game in a follow-up video, so subscribe for that to not miss out on that. Like the video, that would help out a lot, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.